dedicated to just reaching and working with Native American students. And Mark Charles is the representative of the Calvin Institute of Worship. And we all work together as one group collectively to help put on this one conference every year. This is the third annual WJEF, the GCC Fried Bread Conference. And we'll get started here pretty soon. I can have everybody just kind of filter back down, find you a seat, sit down like, how's it more like this? And again, if you hit me before, please help this college by picking up all your trash, orange peels and everything off the floor. I don't know if we have a lost and found area yet, but I'm sure that'll happen too, in case you leave your clothes or jackets or anything behind. So yes, if you guys can filter back down, that'd be great. We can get started pretty soon. The longer you take, the more consistent lunch. I know we're all waiting for lunch already. Breakfast is wearing off. All the bacon is making its way through your system. It's going to be time to refill some good lunch. I'll just recap some of the announcements again today. Today for lunch. Lunch is on your own. It's not covered by the conference today, but you get to go out into Cloquet, and the buses will leave. Still tentative time. Whenever we get done here, you'll get on the bus and they'll take you to someplace in Cloquet to eat. And you'll have about an hour and a half to eat with your little clan groups. And then you guys, I think you'll have questions for that time too, just to get to know each other a little more, process some things we've been talking about through the life of Moses, and that's kind of been our focus for this conference. And his story can be found in the book of Exodus. Then breakfast again tomorrow. If you didn't hear before, breakfast will be the same as this morning. Just charge it to your room. So same thing will happen tomorrow. And then tomorrow morning again, the buses will leave at 8:40 in the morning. So be on the bus at 8:40. And then the Twitter hashtag. If you take pictures of anything or you want to call up something, you can do the hashtag WJEF14. And then in the back we have the bookstore. His name is Jim Utley of Native Life. And they put out publications by Native Americans for Native Americans. And feel free to take a look at those books, and they are for sale. And if you didn't get an Indian Life Mag newspaper, you can still do that in the back. And then again, if you get lost, you can call Mark Charles, Fornello, Mr. Fornello. Yeah, just don't call him at the hotel, that might be a little awkward. So if you guys in the back can come down, we're gonna get started pretty soon. That would be great. And again, you guys can bring some of your here to eat. And be sure to clean up after yourselves. That would be cool and great. And respectful to the college. Nice monks, Christian. Monks. Rock your monks. That's today, isn't it? Rock your monks. Yesterday. So we call you guys mockers. The mockers. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Last time we got to hear from Charles Robinson, and we get to hear from him again. And as he continues on to the life of Moses. Oh, there's a thing if you need him again. Emergency contact, hashtag, all that information to keep us connected to the conference. But again, I just want to read a little bit of, in case you were here last night, Charles Robinson is a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. He has a passion to reach and teach about Native culture. He travels around the U.S. with his wife, teaching presentations about Native issues to churches, to schools, and to different organizations. He is the founder and CEO of Red Road. And if you want to know more about Red Road, you can just go on, log on. I mean, we all push Google, like how you do your homework. Just Google something to figure it out. You can Google Red Road, and it'll tell you more about his organization. And so I'd like to welcome up Charles Robinson again to lead our morning session. So please welcome him.
Again, so I didn't offend enough people because you all came back. I'll try harder this morning. I was laughing with my wife who said that Facebook is our new form of smoke signals. That's how we get our message across these days. The gospel of Jesus Christ will not be known to all mankind until somebody goes and incarnates Jesus in a local. Does that make sense? Until somebody goes and incarnates Jesus in a local expression to them. And so for native people, oftentimes what that looks like is us going back into our communities where white people have been trying to do ministry for, a couple hundred years, 400, 500 years. I mean, it's us going back to our own communities and sharing Jesus with our own people. But we face a lot of obstacles as we do that, and we talked about some of that last night. Where are my Cherokee people here? The Lumbee, those, okay. All right, so what many of you guys may not know is that the Cherokee and the Choctaw, traditionally, we kind of didn't get along. And so you guys have heard of the Trail of Tears. Well, the Choctaw were removed in 1830 prior to the official Trail of Tears. So our Choctaw people moved into Oklahoma, were there, and all of a sudden all you Cherokees started showing up in Oklahoma. You know what the Choctaw said? Well, there goes the neighborhood. Because it was a completely different culture, completely different people group coming in, and at the time we didn't know there's going to be 25 other tribes coming into Oklahoma. And I don't like to brag, actually I do like to brag. Oklahoma is actually two Choctaw words. Okla meaning people, Homa meaning red, so it's the land of the red people. It's two Choctaw words. So now you can go home and say you're bilingual. Choctaw. Another thing that I heard some of you guys saying earlier, and I've heard some people talk about, was up at the Wyandotte lady earlier. Was it Megan? Megan. When people say you don't look Indian, and I know some of you guys look just like the back of that old nickel. I recognize some of you guys. I recognize your pictures. I'm just waiting for you guys to pose and do like this or something. But some of us don't have that really cool look. And people say, well, you don't really look Indian. And what they're really saying is you don't look like the Hollywood version of what I think an Indian is supposed to look like.
Amen.
That's really what they're saying. Because I'm telling you, as you look around here and you see tribal people from all over North America, we all look a little different. We spend a lot of time, my wife and I, doing ministry up on the Hopi reservation. And I love the Hopi people, but they're so short. They're just so short. My wife's people, the Blackfoot people, man, they're tall people. And so I don't know if the Hopi use sweat lodges, but it'd have to be about the size of a doghouse or something, because those taller people can't fit in those small sweats. Let you know, do you do that? I don't know. But my wife and I, we have this organization called the Red Road, and I talked about it. And to many of our native people, the Red Road means to live life in the traditional red man's way, where you respect yourself, respect others, respect all of creation, but you worship the Creator. Many of our native people understand that phrase and know that means that if you live a life that way, that you're walking the Red Road. But to my wife and I, because we're followers of Jesus, the Red Road also represents that bloodstained road that led Jesus to the cross. And so my wife and I, we have these shirts made up of, and I didn't bring any to sell. If I don't know what I was thinking, I guess because I know you Indians don't have any money, so you were going to buy them. If I thought about it, I brought some of these shirts because it says "Stay Red." And so for us, what that means is to always be reminded of our traditional values as Native people. Always be reminded of the traditional values and things that as Native people we hold near and dear to our hearts. But also "Stay Red" to us means always be reminded that you're washed in the blood. Because as you encounter all the junk that goes on in life, we need that reminder. We need that foundation, that something we can anchor ourselves to that we know is immovable. And that's God. So as we were going through some stuff last night, we've kind of established that Moses had a pretty tough time growing up in a lot of ways. And I want to touch on that just briefly, just as a reminder. So we talked about how he was adopted out at 3 years old. And I want to tell that story just a little differently. So you got this, think back to slavery days in America. You got this little, you got this plantation owner. He has this daughter, and they got all these slaves. And he looks and he sees this one woman have a little black baby and says, I think I like that little black baby for my own. So she brings that black baby into her home, and she's raising this baby there, and the baby grows up and kind of has his run of the house. He kind of gets through, does what he wants to around the plantation. Now, quite honestly, I'm kind of thinking Pharaoh probably wasn't real keen on that idea from the beginning, but probably went along with it because it's his daughter. But so the little boy grows up. He's looking around and saying, you know, I look a whole lot more like the slaves than I do the slave masters. One of the slaves, and he gets on the slave master and he fights him and he kills him. Gets a little scared, buries him. Thinks he did a good thing because he's protecting some of his own people. Next day, he goes back out there and he sees two of the slaves fighting. And he comes up and tells them, hey, man, what's going on? Why are you guys fighting? You settle down here. And they said, what are you going to do? You going to kill us like you did the other guy, the slave master? And at that time, I can just see these two slaves going, he's going, no, man, I'm just trying to help out. And they're going, no, you think you're one of us, but you're not really one of us. You think you're from the res, but you're not really from the res. Remember, you were adopted out as a baby, and you were raised in those nice white suburbs of Denver. You watched Dances with Wolves 10 or 15 times, and now you think you're going to be all Indian. You're going to come back to the reservation. You know, you learned how to make fry bread on YouTube. Now you're going to come back here, and you're going to try and be Indian. It don't work like that. I can see, because I know how we are. I know how we people are. And I can see people being critical of it. And so you got this Moses, this tricultural man who is this Ojibwe guy, adopted out, raised in the Cherokee, and then goes off and marries a Navajo woman. And I know that, remember he said he's tending the sheep, his father-in-law's sheep, so it had to be Navajo. I don't know anybody else who want to raise sheep. So he's out there watching the sheep one day, and God speaks to him. Now, this is kind of crazy. I mean, if you just kind of picture it, you're kind of sitting there and you're doing whatever you do with it when you're watching sheep. What do you do when you watch sheep? There's nothing. You kind of sit there, right? And all of a sudden, he hears this voice coming from this bush. It's on fire. And that's kind of odd. Okay? So he goes up and he starts talking. Has anybody ever had God speak to you in an unconventional way? You ever had God speak to you in a way and you're going, man, I don't want to tell my family about that because they're going to think I'm weird. I just want to talk about it publicly because they're going to think I'm losing my mind. The Bible is full of examples of how man in unconventional ways, through donkeys, through burning bushes. Proverbs says, go to the ant, you sluggard, study its ways and be wise. Watch the birds of the air, the flowers of the field. God uses all these examples of his creation to speak to us or to reveal himself to us, right? I've got a book I wrote called The Silent Voice of Creation. It's taken out of Romans 1:19 and 20. That says, what may be known about God is plain to man because God has made it plain to man. He says, the world, his invisible qualities and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, creation, being understood from what has been made so that men are without excuse. What does that mean? We should be able to look at creation and recognize a creator. God can speak to us through his creation. Two things I'm convinced of. One is that God is always desiring to speak to us. And secondly, English is not his first language. English is not God's first language. As much as I like to think it's Choctaw, I don't think it is. So God desires to communicate with us, to speak with us, to reveal himself to us in lots of ways other than English. And so Moses threw this bush that's on fire. And what did he say? So God says to Moses, I've heard the cry of my people, and I'm sending you to the king of Egypt so you can lead my people, the Israelites, and lead them out of slavery. I'm going to send you back to this place you used to live. You remember you got run out of? And nobody likes you back there. You know, even your own people don't like you. You remember that? I'm going to send you back there, and you're going to lead my people out. And of course, Moses' response was, God, who am I? And I'm a nobody. Who am I to do something that big? And immediately, Moses begins to make these excuses and choose somebody else. See, because he knows when he goes back, along with being on Egypt's most wanted list, there's probably these little papyrus scrolls hung up all over Egypt with a picture on them said wanted dead or alive, right? He knows on a wanted list there. Plus, he knows the people he's going to free probably don't care much for him either. And so he struggles with it. Because he also knows his own personal insecurities about going back to his tribe. He's probably asking himself, you know, I've been a Midianite so long, I don't even know that I can speak my language anymore. He may be saying, you know, I'm not a full blood. My skin's not dark enough. My skin's too dark. He may be thinking, you know, I wasn't raised on a reservation. Why would they accept me? He may be thinking, I was raised on a reservation, but my family weren't involved in the ceremonies and in the community. I don't know the songs, the dances. I don't know how to do this and do that within our culture. He may be saying, I'm from that one family on the reservation nobody likes. So if I go back now, they're going to say, oh, he's just coming in because his dad's a council member, his mom's a chief, he's doing this, or his family did that. Moses may be afraid to go back, insecure about going back because he remembers the crime he committed on the reservation. He may not want to see the faces of the people who he hurt at a time in his life when maybe his mind wasn't right. He may be insecure because of himself, because of the things that may have happened to him as a young boy or a young girl. Stuff that wasn't his fault. Stuff that wasn't his fault. That somehow he or she has internalized and said, if I would have put myself in that vulnerable position, these things might not have happened. I can't go back now because this is a part of my past. Those are real things that we have to take into consideration. Because nobody wants to have to face this crap that we've had to deal with in our own lives, in the lives of our family members. Stuff that's been done to us, stuff that we've done to other people. Nobody wants to have to relive those things. And he may be insecure because he's thinking, I haven't told anybody about the internal struggles I have, about the addictions I have. He may be thinking, man, I know that I struggle with pornography on the internet, and I don't think I'm the right person to go back to talk to my people about this because I struggle in this area. Or I may have this drug addiction or this alcohol addiction. And he may be saying, I don't even know who I am anymore. Am I an Egyptian? Am I a Hebrew? Am I a Midianite? What am I? Who am I? I don't really know anymore. But let me tell you something. Anytime God has called you to do something, anytime God is placing you, is calling you to do something to represent Him, the evil one will come in and whisper lies in your ear to tell you that you're not worthy. That you have no right to try and stand up and to speak this truth. The devil will try and tell you these lies. We can't believe those things. We cannot hold on to those things. And so Jesus tells him, said, who am I, God? I'm nobody. I'm not the one for this. God says, well, this will be your sign. And so God says, before you go, people are going to just come start giving you silver and gold and clothes for your kids, and they're going to do this. And I'm guessing the clothes they get that they were supposed to give them were not the hand-me-down stuff that we get on the reservations, right? When we go out to the reservations every year, people, so they'll start loading us up with all these bad clothes that didn't sell at their garage sales to come give to poor Indians, right? Because those poor Indians, they can use anything. So, I'm guessing the stuff they were given were pretty good. And so God says, this will be a sign that this will happen. And Moses, of course, says, well, what if they still don't believe me? That I'm supposed to come. And God says, what do you tell them that who I am? Tell them, I am that I am. Then tell them this is my name. And of course, Moses still fighting and says, what if they still don't believe me? And God says, well, what's in your hand? And he's got this stick, and it says, it's a staff. He said, throw it on the ground. He throws it on the ground, it becomes a snake. And Moses, cool. He says, okay, now pick it up. And at that point, by Moses, I'm like, no, it was cool when it turned into a stick, not when I was supposed to reach down and grab a stick. So he reaches down and picks his stick up, and it becomes a staff again. Okay, stick your hand in your pocket. So his hand in his pocket, takes his hand out, and it's like it's got leprosy. So okay, now put it back in, take it back out, and it's all healed up again. I mean, he's got to be thinking, God, you got some power here. And then if they're still not believing, you go and now throw it on the ground, and it becomes blood. So now it's like Moses has got this arsenal of really cool stuff that he can do to say that he's from God. And God has sent him. But in typical Moses fashion, he says, well, what if they still don't believe me? I mean, I'm really not that good of a speaker. Actually, I'm kind of bad. You know, when we find out later on, you guys talked about it earlier in Acts 7:22, it says that he was a strong speaker. So maybe Moses was an okay speaker, but in his mind, he had believed lies that people had told him throughout his life, and he didn't think he was a good speaker. I don't know. So is that not a good speaker? You know, that's not my gifting. I'm not good at that. How many times has somebody told you to do something and you say, well, that's not really in my gifting? No. God did not ask if it's in your gifting. God's not concerned about our ability. He's concerned about our availability. And so then after that, God told him, hey, I'm the one who made your mouth. Man, don't worry about any of that stuff. I'll take care of that. And now Moses is he's running out of excuses. He says, come on, God, just send somebody else. See, Moses did not want to have to face all of his stuff, all of his insecurities. He did not want to have to do that. And so when he says send somebody else, in Scripture says God got mad. I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to piss God off. I'm sorry, I don't want to pee God off. But God is gracious. He says, I tell you what I'm going to do. Your brother Aaron, I'm going to send Aaron with you. I'm going to send Aaron with you. And that seemed to do the trick. And I'm thinking he kept that staff, and this is something I would encourage you guys to do. I think one of the reasons he kept that staff is that it would be a physical reminder that God gave this staff, should be a physical reminder every day of that promise, of what God's power is and what God has called him to do. Carrying around this reminder. I do that. I have a necklace that I wear. And I won't go into the whole story on this, but it was gifted to me by the grizzly claw, all these things. And I wear this as a reminder, constant reminder. It's kind of like my Moses staff, except it doesn't turn into anything. And so, know this, that regardless of what we've done, regardless of the junk that we've done to others that have been, regardless of any of that stuff, God can pardon our sins if we ask for forgiveness. We don't need to be afraid to go back into community. I mean, there may be consequences for our actions in the past, but we don't have to be afraid, because if God calls us someplace, He's gonna take care of us when we get there. I promise you that. But I am willing to bet that Moses' feelings of inadequacy probably followed him much of his life. And the reason I think that is because normally with most of us, the point we start feeling pretty cocky or confident about our situation, the moment we start doing that, we kind of get a little arrogance about us. And they kind of look what I've accomplished, right? So I think much of that probably followed him throughout his life. And if you know what, if that's how you guys feel that way about going back into your communities, man, you're not alone. We all feel that way. We've all dealt with that. You know, I did. I didn't grow up Asian, had lighter skin. I've only had long hair for about 10 years. You know, when I was in second grade, I used to walk about 2 miles to go to church. And I don't even know why I did, but I'd walk about 2 miles every Sunday to go to church. And I do think part of the reason why is because I grew up very low income, in this church, I'll say if I got there early enough, they served hot chocolate and donuts. And growing in my home, we never got those. So I'd get up, I'd walk 2 miles to this church every Sunday, sit through the service, eat my donut and hot chocolate, and walk home. And I was a little Indian kid with long hair, and I remember sitting in this church one time, and I'd always sit right over here. I didn't know anybody, so I'd just sit right over here by myself. And the pastor one time, he was preaching, and he said that it was a sin and an abomination for men and young boys. He looks right down where I'm sitting. He said, and young boys. I was mortified. After church, I got up and left. I walked all the way back home, had my mom cut my hair, and I didn't go back to church. I believed the lies and inaccurate information that people told me. So I was concerned that I may not be accepted on the reservations as we go back into the ministry. I was concerned about these things because I was dealing with my own insecurity. And you know, I was much older than all of you guys, most of you guys, when I started this organization, the Red Road. I was 34 when I started. That was 14 years ago. That's 48, Mark. I know you're trying to do that now. But I'm a knucklehead. It took a burning bush for me to see, to do what God had been talking to me and planting in my heart and pushing me to do for many, many years. Let me tell you my burning bush story. I've been traveling around, as in the music industry, and I've been traveling around with different artists, and I was going, come on, God, there's more to life than this. There's more to life. I know. I want to minister to your native people. God had placed that time earlier, but I was too scared to do that because I had a good paying job. And so I'd been on the road, and I went in and talked to my boss at the time, and I said, you know, I feel like this is what God needs to do, but I'm just scared to do it. I'm scared to step out. And he said, well, just when the time is right, you'll know. So I've been on the road. I came in that night, and this church service going on, and I thought, I'm just going to go up there, sit in the back of the room, and just listen to some of this really good praise and worship music. And that's it. So that's what I did. I sit there. Service is over. I'm getting up to leave. I'm walking out the door, and in my spirit, God said, go have that woman pray for you. And I look back around, and I look across this big old church building, and I'm looking around, and I'll be honest, I'm a young single guy, so I'm hoping it's like this really hot chick. Go have pray for me, right? But it wasn't. It's this old white woman with white hair. So I said, dang God. So I'm walking to this woman who I've never seen before. And I said, okay, you may think this is a little crazy, but God told me that you're supposed to pray. And she looks at me, she says, are you Choctaw Indian? I said, yes, I am. She said, God has already spoken to me about you. I said, really? What did he say? She reaches down on the chair she's sitting in, pulls up a tablet of paper, rips out a piece of paper and hands it to me and says, this is what God says. This is a woman I've never seen before in my life. On this piece of paper. She said, I kept hearing this word, Choctaw, and I didn't know what it was, so I wrote down and I said, God, what is this? And God told me that it was an Indian. And the way she spelled it is interesting because it's the way the Choctaw spelled it, not the way the English spelled it. It says, someone of Choctaw Indian blood. Then underneath that it says, don't let the harvest rot in the field. Go. Don't let the harvest rot in the field. Go. So I said, okay, God. Next day I went in and told my boss that story, gave him a piece of paper. He cried and I cried, and I left. It's been 14 years now. So yeah, God does still speak to us in burning bushes. And then God gave me an Aaron in my life. He gave me my wife, who did grow up on a reservation, who speaks her language, who is darker skinned, who does know all the ceremonies of her tribe. All of these things, these areas that I felt very, very inadequate in. My wife had all of those areas, but she felt inadequate in other ways that I was able to fill in the gaps for. So that's kind of how God does things sometimes. So God can relate to us and meet us where we're at in these multiple worlds we're living in. And He's calling you guys to be a part of a great, big, beautiful picture that we see about people of every tribe and tongue and nation. And so, there's going to come a time when you, or like I was talking with Nick earlier from Yakima, and he was telling, I don't know where Nick's at, but he was telling me about what he's doing now and going back to the reservation and having these discussions and conversations with people. story, there's going to come a time when you're going to say, okay, God, I'm ready to do whatever this thing is you're calling me to do. I've been holding back. I'm ready to step into it. That opportunity is going to come. And I'm going to encourage you to embrace it. I'm going to encourage you to embrace it. It'll be a fun ride. It was not easy for Moses. It was not easy for Jesus, who, by the way, God is a multicultural God, isn't he? The Son, he's the Holy Spirit, who's relocated from heaven to earth in the form of Jesus, right? So God in and of himself is diverse. So if God can do it for himself, God can do it for Moses, he can and will do it for you. I'm going to be around for the rest of the conference. I'd love to sit down and just have some conversation with some of you guys. If there's any question you have or want to talk about anything, please come find me. It's an honor and a blessing to be here. You go, okay?
Thank you, Charles. Let's give him another hand. It's always fun to hear his perspective on Moses and just the things he went through and then being able to articulate it so well. Thank you, Charles, for giving us speaking to us about what a Hollywood Indian is. That's a new term will come through, or that will come out today. Hollywood Indian. We look a certain way, stereotypical Indian, and then those that don't. I don't know what term we call something else. So something else to think about later. And it's funny why he would ask, why would we raise sheep? So all the Navajos, why do we raise sheep? One word. Mutton. There you go. I don't know if Charles had mutton, but he'll change his tune as soon as he does. Good stuff. And sheep are kind of boring. They just stay there. So it's not that you have to corral them up to kind of do what you want anyway. So it's like pretty easy. That's why Navajos do it probably. But I like sheep. Wish we had some sheep. But anyways, thank you again, Charles. Like I said, he'll be around. So if you guys want to ask him a question or just sit down and have a conversation with him, he'll stay here with us for a little bit longer. And so we'll move into our next part where we get to hear from a student store. Oh, actually, he's not a student anymore. He actually just joined staff with Nations, which is the organization I work with. And so if I could have Ethan Chavis join me on stage, and you guys can welcome him up as he walks. I had the opportunity and the privilege of joining Ethan out in Pembroke, where he's from, and I swear they have good food there. So the only time I've ever taken, is there any foodies out there where you just take pictures of your food and put it on Twitter or Facebook, don't even eat them? I've done that. The only time I've ever done that was I went to Pembroke and ate at Ethan's house, and they had a feast, and his family cooked for me and a couple of people that visited him. That's the only time, because I thought that meal was worthy of a retweet, and it was just good. And I'm glad he's here with us with his group from Pembroke, and I'll just hand it over to you.
So God feeds the birds. So exactly why should I worry each day, like actually clothes all the lilies of the field? So exactly why should I be stressed? As I live, I curious, so it's futile, it's not actually helpful in any way. So I'll explain exactly why I actually started with that in a second. I was actually asked to actually share two things. One is like my own personal story and testimony of struggles and adversity. And second is the history of my people, the Logan tribe. So first, Essentially, like as Donnie said, I'm Ethan Chavis, I'm on staff with Crew and Nations. I served at Pembroke in North Carolina. And as a young guy, as I grew up, I just enjoyed sports. I enjoyed hunting deer. Also, all my family and friends, just kind of engaging, with all the people around me, just actually having a good time. In life, though, I actually struggle quite a bit because I have a speech problem. I stutter, and it's more of a block, so I'll try to say something and I'll just get stuck. So like all my air stops and I can't breathe, and I'm just like, essentially I'm stuck. And so as you hear me say and actually all those are filler words that I use to actually try and compensate for that. So in life it was difficult to actually fit in and be accepted because I always felt if people see that I'm different, then I'll be looked at like in a different way. Like I have a stigma on my life, that says Ethan's a stutterer. And so in the same way as Moses is, there are as I actually entered in, like in college in Pembroke, in 2007, I had an encounter where I came face to face, actually with Christ and with the gospel. And in my life, I saw how selfish I was. I saw how everything in my life was about me and how arrogant I was, even though I had this fear and kind of a humble spirit, that said, like I'm, like I'm not all too like a lot selfish and arrogant. And in that experience, I really understood how sinful I was, and I understood how far from God, my heart was. But in the same instance, I saw how much God loved me, and I saw His grace, and I saw His mercy. I saw how Christ had came and actually died in my place, so that all my sin, all my selfishness could be taken away, and I could actually have a personal walking relationship actually with God. And so in that instant, I was completely changed. I was completely transformed at that time. I had a new passion and a new desire. So like in my life, I started to actually grow some. And at a certain point, I was challenged because I saw, as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, I'm responsible to actually tell others about Him. So I said, God, how can I actually do this? Because I am inadequate. The story of Moses is encouraging because as God first enters into Egypt, like his response is, like essentially when Moses says, who am I to actually do this? And God says, I will be with you. So essentially pat Moses on the back and say, Moses, you're God, it's okay, like you can do it. Like he doesn't say that. He says, I will be with you. So in my own life, in my own struggles, I have to trust and know that God is going to be with me as I serve on campus at Pembroke, as I try to actually lead other Native students on campus, actually to Christ, as I serve amongst all the loving people there. So in my walk, I saw how God, and in certain times, allow me to speak clearly and fluently. There can be days where as I talk, talk is a struggle, and as I speak, like it's actually other things on my heart of heart. Then there's other times if I actually engage with someone, like in the gospel, like I'm actually telling the story of Christ, I can just sit down and it flows, and it's like in that time, and God's Spirit just allows me to speak actually freely. And so I saw God actually do that in my life. And so at the time I was actually introduced to the opportunity of actually joining staff with Nations. I joined staff and I heard about this process called actually raise and support. And I was like, I'm gonna raise all my support, how am I gonna do that? Because that involves phone calls and sitting every day and doing this, and I hate phones. By the way, I do not like it. Actually calling people, especially on the home phone. If I know that you'll answer it, then it's not not too bad. But actually a home phone, it's tough to say, hey, this is Ethan. And actually ask to actually speak to the person. So it was tough, and so as I joined staff, people who it actually took almost 2 years to actually raise all our support. So I joined staff in January, and I was out in February, actually starting on my support. And in 6 months, God had actually raised every bit of my funds, so that I actually started on campus a week prior to school starting at Pembroke. That, in all my all my failures and inadequacies, and He opened up the door for people to trust in this work and to give in an awesome way. So essentially, all my speech is still a hindrance in my life and my walk, but it causes me to lean on God. It causes me to trust in Him each and every day, and especially as I have to speak to people. And as a missionary on the campus, essentially, that's what we do, is we speak as a witness. I actually tell people about the story of Christ. So in that sense, it's a blessing in my life as well. So in this process, God has actually taught me that I'm not called to be fearless, but I'm called to trust Him in the midst of my fear, in faith and obedience. So even though that's a hard process, it's something that I'm learning that as I do it, God is strengthening me each and every day in that. To actually serve in Pembroke amongst our on campus at Pembroke amongst all the Lumbee people there. And so and the second question I actually want to answer is exactly who are the Lumbee people? Essentially, Lumbee is a Siouan term. I said it. Essentially it means people of dark water. So this term, actually comes off the Lumber River. And this term, is actually given to our tribe in 1951. So prior to that, exactly who are we? And what is the history? So honestly, in the things I'll share, it's something. Essentially, it's some of the theories that we have actually in our people, and essentially this is the primary theory of thought of who our people are. So as pilgrims lands in the 1500s, and since we are on the coast, on the eastern coast, and all our tribes are the first ones to actually be in contact with all the pilgrims. So eastern tribes such as the Sherrall, the Catawba, the Sugaree, the Yamasee, the Tuscarora, Cherokee, PD, Santee, all these tribes along the eastern coast, in Virginia, South Carolina, and in that time, a couple of things actually took place. A few epidemics and other diseases and other factors actually caused all these tribes along the coast to actually be actually brought down to only 10% of the population. So in that context, as there are all these tribes around in the area, actually from each tribe is only a small part of the population live. Exactly how do you live and survive in that environment? So the story and the history and the context is that all these tribes came all together, kind of in the Robinson County and Pembroke area, in North Carolina for survival. As the Trail of Tears actually took place, and like a lot of tribes actually pushed out west. Essentially, our story goes that like all these tribes along the coast actually formed up, like, and actually stayed and hid out in the swamps of Robinson County. And so, like, as I traveled through town, like, I can actually travel through, like in our home, like in our, like actually travel in our county. You know, like I actually travel like about 5 or 6 miles. You know, like I may pass 5 swamps on the way. And so, like in our area, like it's highly dense in swamplands. So our story is that, like, as this actually took place in the Trail of Tears, a lot of people actually hid out in these swamps. And all these people, like, are descendants of all these tribes that were kind of in that area prior to all these things actually taking place on the coast. So like tears actually took place, and these people like are actually living in the swamps as these tribes actually began to emerge from the swamps. All the people like actually started to actually clear trees, you know, for other fields and crops, and actually make a home, you know, like in this area. As a new people, kind of in a sense, who is actually made up of like a number of tribes, you know, primarily Eastern Siouan, other tribes. Like our people, like actually wanted to actually establish, you know, like our own identity, you know. So in 1885, our state government actually gave us the name Croatan. So in 1911, after we had that name for a number of years, our tribe actually got up, like, all together and asked if we would be called, like, actually asked if it, like, if we would be called the Sherol, and the state actually changed that and took off the term Sherol and just called us the Indians of Robinson County. So that actually lasted all years. And so after that, you know, since it was kind of bland, and our tribe, like, as they kind of identified us as the Cherokee people, you know, like of that county. And so that name actually stuck until 1951, you know, but like all the Cherokee people already had like an established people like in the mountains of North Carolina. So in 1951, a group of men actually went up at the state in Raleigh and asked if we would be called like a Lumbee people on the area. So at that point, you know, there was at that point, you know, there was essentially a sense of identity and a sense of our people who essentially like is a mixture of primarily of the Sherol tribe, and like it's what our like our elders and leaders think, you know, people who are kind of in the process of trying to actually see and find out exactly who we are. Actually see us as ancestors, you know, primarily of the Sherol tribe. So like even there are people like as a broad scope of tribes, and also probably and possibly like other ethnic that as well. Like essentially our tribe is still in the process of fighting to actually keep and maintain like our identity as Native peoples. And so our story is a story of struggle, like is a story of struggle, adversity, and assimilation to actually live and survive. So I have a couple of questions for all those. Well, at first, you know, like all our people, like all along, we have accepted Christ and Christianity. However, our people are far from God. So like even though our people kind of actually name Christ as Lord and Savior, it's a very unhealthy form of Christianity. And so I felt called to actually go back and serve. And in the midst of me feeling called to actually go back and serve all these people, I feel inadequate. And that's probably because I am. As people in general, as sinful and fallen people, we are inadequate. Only Christ is able to accomplish in us that which He has actually called us to do. So for those of you who are Christians, exactly what is He calling you to do? And exactly how is He calling you to serve either your people or some other people who is close to you? In what areas of your life are you still not trusting Him and giving to Him fully? And for those of you who aren't Christians, He is calling you to. He is calling you to Himself. And so He is asking you to come and to trust in Him and to give every aspect of your life to Him. So like all of us, our application is trust Christ and to give your life to Him for His purpose, His plan. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ethan, for that, for sharing your heart and your journey and calling us to what the Lord called on all of us, and that He's calling us and He knows who we are. Again. It's never easy speaking. If you knew me a long time ago, you would say that man would never be on stage talking to anybody ever. But it's really been a fun journey for me, kind of coming to be able to do emceeing. There's but done emceeing here, so I haven't said anything too offensive to them. They've taken it away from me. So you never know. Third time's a charm, right? So can everybody see this book? Take a good look at it. Everybody see it? Okay, now I'm going to kind of put it away. I will give this book to anybody who can tell me the title. And then try. Okay, go ahead. Oh, and this is for students. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, good. Okay, go ahead. Nope. Sorry. Go ahead, Tristan. No, it was close. Let's go ahead. No, almost. Close. Go ahead.
Red, brown, yellow, black, white.
There you go. All right. Come on down. You have the right shirt on, that's why. You turn around, tell me your name.
I'm JD Mercado from Northern Arizona University, from the Gila River Indian community.
Thank you. All right, so good job, JD. So right now we're going to have, I think Moani should join me up here for a little bit of what we're going to do now for small groups. Again, we're going to have small groups. You guys meet in find your group leader, and then head out towards the buses. I think they're towards the lobby if you walk down this hallway, hopefully, if I'm wrong. And you can have lunch with your small group. Lunch will be so the bus will take you somewhere in Cloquet for about 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. And so you'll have an hour and a half to kind of talk with your small group, eat, and then that hour and a half, that 90 minutes is up, get back on the bus, and it'll take you back to the hotel for some free time.